jury. He was wanted by the British. Many say he was actually even, if not responsible, he was part of the group that changed the Nazi ideology from just driving out the Jews to actually the final solution when he came to Berlin. Well, there's a question historically, but he nevertheless was part. The last thing he wanted was the Jews coming to Palestine at the time. In any case, symbolically, his house, or his residence, a massive property has been acquired, and 17 families are going to live there in stage one, and God willing, there will be 70 families, Jewish families, and a synagogue and a play centre. Quite the reverse of what the Nazis and the Mufti tried to do in the years when he was here in the 20s and 30s. He was responsible for the pogroms and riots, which is very significant, because as everyone here probably knows, there was a Jewish majority in the old city. It really gets me going when I hear the United Nations saying that we have no connection to Jerusalem. What makes me even more furious is when they don't even recognise, even if you put aside, which I don't like putting aside, Abraham, Isaac, the decrees of Cyrus and Darius, even in the last 100 years, a Turkish census places the Muslim quarter, then it wasn't the Muslim quarter because that was divided up by the British, for those who don't already know. There were 19,000 Jews living in the old city out of 28,000. That's a Jewish majority. The reason I'm stressing this point is because if anyone really is an illegal occupier, it would clearly be those Arabs, for example, who were living in the buildings, the synagogues of the Jews that were displaced. Even according to the Geneva Convention, if you are a displaced person, you have a right to go back to your house, whether it be an aggressive or defensive war. As it was, the Six-Day War was a defensive war, and clearly Jews have rights to go back, which is what has happened. The 19,000 was up here, 21 synagogues and 6 centres of Jewish learning in the area today defined as the Muslim quarter. The Muslims divide up Jerusalem, and they end up giving the Jews about 1/9 of the old city. Of course, the 19,000 dwindles down to how many? 0. No Jews were living here as a result of the war in 1948, where it was lost by the Jewish people. We come back in 67, today there's a revival of Jewish life in this area, and there's 1,000 Jews now living in the old Jewish quarter. This particular building is one of the buildings where Jews have returned back to. It happens to be a very significant building, owned, I'm not going to go into the whole history, by a guy called Beit Wittenberg. I'm not sure whether Beit Wittenberg really knew who actually was at this place before he bought it, but he bought a massive building complex that was actually a hotel once. Before I go to the hotel, Beit Wittenberg himself and his 20 families who were living here were driven out. Hungarian Jews moved back after the first set of pogroms. After that, they left altogether with the second set of pogroms in 37-38. No Jews here. It all changes when Ateret Cohanim, founded by Mati Dan 40 years ago, starts to bring Jewish life back. Surely we have rights to live anywhere in Jerusalem. We just heard that from the mayor, I believe he said. We can live in any neighbourhood. You have to remember that line. We weren't allowed to film it, but I think we can all remember we can live anywhere. And today, this is one of those buildings. It became even more famous when Ariel Sharon, in 1987, let's put it this way, I think he knew he wasn't going to live here, but he wanted to make a specific point, a very symbolic point that said, we have rights to live anywhere and everywhere in Jerusalem, especially close to Temple Mount, especially in a building where Jews were driven out from. And so this actually is formally his apartment in the complex of Wittenberg, which is made up of 2 courtyards. But of course, a few years ago, it was discovered, and soon you'll hear a little bit more about it, by a wonderful friend, historian, tour guide extraordinaire and builder of models, including Mini Israel, and doing something very special today in Manhattan, discovered basically that this was the Mediterranean Hotel, and no other than Mark Twain stayed here at the Mediterranean Hotel. We're of course coming to the 150th year anniversary of Mark Twain, and for a very specific purpose, we actually placed certain quotes from his book on this 150th anniversary stand. Palestine sits in sackcloth and ashes. Renowned Jerusalem itself, the stateliest name in history, has lost all its ancient grandeur. The riches of Solomon are no longer. The wonderful temple, which was the pride and the glory of Israel, is gone. The reason why that was chosen is because the Arab world claim on a number of internet sites, Mark Twain never left the hotel. He never saw anything in Israel. He sipped wine and ate cheese in this hotel, and he has no idea, because we, the Arabs, built up the land before any of the Jews came back. The desert's blooming was done by the Arabs, it seems, and not by God, the Messiah, or the Jewish people. They have another agenda, even though warped and historically incorrect. So that was the story 150 years ago. That's the story today of the Jews now living in this building. As I mentioned, those who heard downstairs at the memorial, one of the families who used to live here was the Lavi family. But once some of them saw and they went through the absolute trauma of what happened when the father, Rabbi Nehemiah Lavi, was murdered by an Arab terrorist, they basically left. The aim of terror, and I'm telling a group that obviously already knows this, is not to kill Rabbi Lavi. The aim of terror is to basically drive out the Jews in the area. You won't go to the Kotel, you won't go to the Temple Mount, you won't live here because we don't want you, this belongs to us. So the response is not, I'm sorry, no. There's going to be another 5 houses, another 10 houses. As it worked out, 5 new families moved in or moving in as a result of another acquisition in the area. That's a summary of basically Beit Wittenberg Mediterranean. I'm now going to pass you over very briefly to, as I said, our wonderful friend Yoni.